Hey everyone, welcome back to the Miser's Guide to Evony. In this consultation video, the person has asked me to take a closer look at their defensive capabilities. They do fairly well in battlefields. They just want to be able to defend against higher level opponents and to be a little bit more successful there. So we're going to look at everything really, but we're also going to be paying closer attention to their defense because that is the request here. So I'm going to start off just with an overview of the entire castle, the entire keep. So we're at keep 39, so it's fairly well developed. Most of the important buildings are at 39 as well. I did take a peek around this keep just a bit earlier, just to see kind of where it's at. We have Wonder 2, so we don't have that extra dragon yet. But everything is looking like what you'd expect for around a keep 39. Let's take a look at the troop count. I'm guessing it's going to be pretty low. It's only a 3.7 billion account, so it is going to be a bit low. And obviously, in terms of defensive capabilities, more troops is definitely better. So I mean, that's an obvious one. That's not really going to be a surprise. But let's take a look at how these troops are allocated. So we've got our tier 14s, got a lot of cavalry, a decent amount of ground and archers, a bit less of siege. It doesn't look too bad at the top end. I mean, you're going to want to beef up the numbers, of course. That's for sure an obvious thing that you already know. Let's see what else going down. Probably some increases as well, not just to the 14s, but the 13s and 12s need to be beefed up quite a bit. If you're just all the way top heavy, then these ones are being underutilized. They're really effective for the amount of resources that they cost. So bringing up those 13s and 12s will help as well, maybe even the 10s. These are really low layer numbers. 10,000, 13,000. Yeah. All these layer numbers, you're going to want to bring them up as well. Minimum, at your size, minimum 500,000, maybe even 1 million. So I would definitely bring these up as well. And I did talk to the player a bit. They said that their goal is to kind of convert to a tier 1 trap keep. So if you are going to be making a tier 1 trap keep, it doesn't mean that you just make tier 1. You're going to want to have layers as well. And those layers are going to benefit by the buffs that you put on the equipment as well. So if you are turning into a tier 1 trap keep, then you don't want to prioritize as highly the upper layers, like I was saying earlier. Like you definitely want to increase them. More troops is definitely better, and they are going to be very effective regardless. But tier 11 and down is really where you're going to see the most benefit from the flat refine buffs rather than percentages. So you're going to want to increase those for sure. You're going to want to make sure that these layers have been increased. 13,000 is just not enough. You're going to want like 1 million at this size. So definitely increase all of these layers. Let's see where you're at with the tier 1 now. So you've got some... This is really the net. Okay, so you've got tier 1 cavalry is what you're working on. Cavalry is not bad. Cavalry is a good choice. You usually want to go cavalry or ground. Ground is a little more rounded against different types, and tier 1 cavalry is really good as well. I would recommend not just focusing on one. I know that you're going to be focusing on one when you're doing your flat refine buffs, and that's where most of your energy is going to get pumped into those tier 1 cavalry. Sure, that's absolutely fine, but don't neglect like making a few catapults as well, so that you can take out the archer attacks. They are pretty effective against archers. They're not the strongest tier 1 to be building, but it does help to beef these up a bit. Same thing with the ground. Like, don't just leave them at 2 million. Increase them a bit, not as heavily as the tier 1 cavalry, but definitely increase them a bit. Okay, that's it for troops here. Some of the other things we can look at. Let's go look, since we're focusing on defense, let's take a look at who you've got on the wall. Got Leonidas the First, who's excellent, and paired with William Marshall. That's an excellent combination. I did talk to the person as well. They were previously using Oda, which is also an excellent general. But yeah, I feel this combination is a bit more well-rounded. That should work out well. And the reason I had asked them is because I noticed that they had no specialty, no skill books, and it was very odd to me. I couldn't figure out why a keep that is so well developed is really lacking in terms of the assistant wall general. And that makes sense because they've just converted. So that's definitely going to be something to work on. But let's take a look at these generals a little more directly. Okay, I'm going to start with the William Marshall. Your William Marshall is your assistant, and that is a very good choice. You're going to want to fill out these skill books like as soon as possible. You've already got them on the wall. It doesn't take much to put some skill books on. You've already got range bonus, siege range bonus. Ground speed really does nothing. I've been saying for years and years that it's so much more effective to do things that you know have an absolute effect, like putting HP and putting defense and putting archer attack and ground attack. Like those kind of buffs actually have a direct impact. And anyone that says like ground speed is good, it like they're saying it just out of speculation. I really am dubious on whether it does anything at all. And there's some people that will say, oh, I've tested it and stuff. But even if it did have an effect, it would have a minute effect in very specific kind of battles. And I'm not even convinced that those ones are as important or as effective. Whereas if you did an absolute buff increase to attack, defense, or HP, you know it's always going to be taking effect, especially on a wall general. So I would highly recommend removing that and putting more concrete, explicit buffs on these two generals to increase your troop types. So you're gonna want to fill out these skill books for sure, and the specialty needs to be worked on William Marshall. I mean, that's one of the reasons why he makes a great wall general is he has very solid, I don't even know if I can click them. There we go. He has really, really solid specialties. So you're going to want to bring these up for sure. Okay. What else? Okay. He doesn't need gear because the gear doesn't apply, but let's take a look at Leonidas. That's a lot of choreo. You've got 4 or 5 pieces of choreo. 5 pieces. Wow. Just missing this one. It's pretty good though. All right. In terms of refines, these are great for the tier 1 trap, but you're not really set up for a tier 1 trap. You're going to want a lot more tier 1 cavalry to be really trapping anyone. 200 million is pretty low. But this is the right idea in terms of refinement. The numbers seem pretty low though. Okay, this one is pretty good. Actually, it's perfectly fine. I'm just thinking it would be higher. Like I'm used to seeing like 1,000 plus, but that's not bad. These ones could be higher for sure. Yeah, keep that range attack. I mean, when you have that nice of a roll, keep it. I would try to re-roll some of these, but I mean, it really depends on where you're at in terms of gold and where you're at in terms of refining stones. Like if you have a limitation on gold and refining stones, this is perfectly fine. If you have an extreme excess, then you can always work on these. I mean, these civilization pieces are like the final pieces, right? like you're not going to be swapping them out anytime soon, hopefully. I mean, we never know what Evony is going to do. So you want to be maximizing those refinements as much as possible. But if you have a limitation, that's definitely not a priority. These look good. Yeah. And, you know, things like this, you're not getting as much benefit because you don't have layers right now. But when you increase those layers, this is going to have an impact the ground HP. These are all percentage based. This is okay. You're 4-piece choreo, not 5-piece. So my guess is you're keeping this because it was, and you're using it because it was previously on your Archer General, and that's why it's there. Because, you know, why not? It's good, and that is fine. And these, I mean, this is defense, so the upper end is lower, 724. But I still think it could be improved unless you have an excess, right? Unless you do not have enough gold, which is probably the case because gold is really a limiting factor for a lot of people. Okay, looks good. So no real concerns with your general. Your general is pretty well built for a tier 1 trap. It's not very well designed if you're trying to do a rounded defense with many different troop types. But if you're focusing on being a trap, then you have the right idea. Okay. And who you've got this dragon. Yeah. Okay. It seems like you're going like full in on that, the tier 1 trap. So in terms of that, you're doing fine. Now let's look at some of your PvP generals. So I don't know where you're at in terms of, like, this is one of the things I didn't look at. I did see that you have some fully ascended generals, which is crazy. Electra, really nice, fully worked out here. Let's take a look. So this will be your Archer. 6-piece civilization. This is probably where your legs came from before. Oh, this is completely unrefined. So I'm guessing you were supposed to, or you were earlier, you were using your Plantagenet legs that you currently have on your wall general, and you were putting them here. And right now, this is not good. Yeah. You're going to want to refine this for sure. Or if you're switching your Plantagenet back here, then that's fine as well. You have 1-piece, 2-piece. So you got 2 and 2. So you would have 2-piece here, rally capacity. Yeah, it's not important. I would leave this one, and I would definitely refine that as soon as possible. You're losing potentially 100% of buffs, right? For 425s. I mean, that's unrealistic, but, or no, that's 30 because it's civilization. So you're losing quite a bit of buffs, over 100% of HP, just from not having that refined. So definitely get that done. This is your Archer General, which means that Archer is something you use more top end, like tier 12, tier 13, tier 14, and when you eventually get it, tier 15 troops. So you're going to be wanting to use percentage based buffs here. So these ones, like on the helm, the HP, not quite as valuable, but definitely keep it if you get high rolls. So these look fine, but you want to be shooting for the 27, 28, 29, 30 HP buffs. But these are fine. They're just not as good. Okay. Yeah, you have some refining work to do here. My guess, just having seen the rest of your account, is that you did a lot of shuffling around. and you're not quite finished. So definitely keep a note of where you need to work on things. Refining here is going to be a big, like you have some pieces that are well done, and then some pieces that you just swapped in recently, and you have random things like siege machine, defense, and then range load and troop capacity, subordinate city. So you haven't done that yet. But seeing as how you haven't done that, I'm pretty sure that I'm right, that you have a limitation with gold, not refining stones. Yeah, it's just gold. So eventually you're going to want to get to that and fix those up. Okay. But you are fully ascended, which is pretty huge. This looks good. Okay. I don't know who your assistant is here. I'm going to scroll down, see if I can guess. So if that's Electra, then you're not going to be using... Electra has some conflicts with a few. Like, I don't think you can use this guy. He would be good otherwise, but I think there's a conflict with those two. Douglas would be a good choice. You could use Douglas as your assistant. Eleanor, you could use as well as your assistant. Another excellent choice. Conrad. Oh, does Conrad have a conflict? Maybe. Conrad would be a pretty good choice as well. Yeah, I think Conrad's okay. So if you're using Electra, I think that Conrad would be your best choice for assistant ranged. And then either Eleanor or Charles or Douglas. So let's see who you are using. Tamiris. Okay, not what I would suggest to go with here, unless you're leading the rallies. Not that Tamiris is bad. It's just, and my guess is your reasoning for using Tamiris is probably because you were using that as a main general before, which is why it had a little bit of ascension there, and the specialty has worked out. So in the short term, Tamiris might be the better choice just because you have that specialty. But you will want to transition to one of the others because they do bring more to the table than Tamiris. Where is that Tamiris? Oh, what am I doing? I clicked through there, so it's not going to show. All right, we'll go here. Tamiris, where are you? Here you are. Okay. Yeah, you've got full specialty, so you're gaining a lot from your specialty, and that's what I'm guessing is your reasoning for using Tamiris here. You're not really getting anything out of the ascension, but that full specialty does help. Okay. So eventually you'll want to transition. Eventually you will want to transition. Okay. Let's check out your ground. I'm going to cheat here, and I'm going to say Elise, and okay. And so, okay. I did see you have a lot of good options for generals that are for ground, but I like that you're using like the more easily obtainable ones to get full ascension. It's a very smart move. And then you have a strong assistant general for each of the setups. It's very nicely done. And like Martinez wouldn't be my top choice for the mounted attack, but he's very solid too. And when you have him fully ascended, you know, there's no reason to switch to, I don't know, say Roland or something else that's easily obtainable. You've already done it, so I would just leave it. I mean, he's a little bit lower than some of the other options, but not significantly low. I mean, he's still very strong. So he's a great choice, at least great choice, Electro great choice. And you're working on Patronus. Okay. Almost there too. That's a tougher one to do. So you've got 4 stars. Your generals are really, really well developed for your size. That's really good. I haven't looked at your gear, but the Ascension and stuff is really solid. Okay, let's take a look at your primary ground. Okay, not bad. These are a bit low. Yeah, there's some refining work, of course. I mean, it's what I expected. You know, with your range and your ground not being done, that was kind of expected. But it's pretty. You're on the right track, is what I'll say. You're on the right track in terms of your refining. Yeah, same thing here. Like you've got some great refines, and then you've got some that need to be worked on. But there's always the limitations of how much you can get done. So for now, this stuff is pretty good. A couple to change. Yeah. Okay. It's all about priorities. What are you working on currently? Okay. Like most people, this is your least developed, your siege. You need another piece, obviously. Let's take a look. You don't have any refines done on this general. It's a work in progress, and that's okay. But you do have the Ascension so high. Crazy. Interesting. It's very mixed Zhao Yun. I mean, Zhao Yun is a mounted specialist, and you got some really mixed stuff on here. So I'm wondering, what are you using this for? Just extra gear, maybe? I don't know. Okay, and there's a dragon on it, so you must have been using it for something. Interesting. Okay. What else can we look at? Let's take a look over at your military academy. So you're at 4. Okay, so you're around here. I didn't check the age of your server, but this is not too bad. It's a bit lower if you're continent 1 or 2. You should be more developed than this, but if you're a little bit higher than that, like 3, 4, 5, then you are doing just fine. They're all pretty much at the same place, right? This one's a little bit behind because it's the least developed. I mean, this one does have a bunch of other things in here that are useful, like as mounted there, march size capacity, ranged. I'd probably buff this one up a little bit as well, especially to get your strike. You want to get that, and decoy. Yeah, it's not as massive as some of the other ones, but the march size capacity is definitely useful. So since siege is not your main troop right now and you're not as developed, just do the minimums here, and except for your strikes, and just like get that and finish that off, but do the minimums for everything else, and then work on the ones that you've already been working on. Academy. I don't know where my like I've updated the game, so I don't know why I can't see the defense advance. Very weird. I did check to see if it was updated, so I don't know. That's weird. It's only on this emulator. The other ones are like the other one that I use for myself, perfectly fine. My phone, perfectly fine. But this one, it's weird. Maybe I'll have to reinstall. Okay, so we've looked at troops, we've looked at buildings, we've looked at research, looked at generals and equipment, different setups. So I think we've got a good idea of where you're at. Okay, so like to recap, your priorities are going to be your troop count is going to be the biggest changer in terms of how you defend. So you started on a tier 1 trap, which is good, but don't neglect the other layers that you need to do. You do need to round your troops a little, so you have different troop types rather than just the upper cavalry. But I would focus more on the lower tiers for now, tier 10 and below, just to get those layers done. And your refining on many of your generals needs to be tweaked as you come into more gold. That's definitely going to be a priority. Finish that assistant general, the William Marshall. Make sure that William Marshall is ready. Like it just takes a few minutes to do the skill books and to work on the specialty. You'll get a lot out of that. I think what you were asking before is you want to be able to defend against people that have like 6 million march sizes. That's a really tough thing to do at 3 billion power. You really need to get more troops. I mean, that's going to be a huge part of it. You just need more troops. So 200 million tier 1 as a trap is pretty low. I've seen players with like billions of tier 1, and that's really where that level is at. You could also work a little bit as you get higher, make some tier 2 as well. It just adds a little more killing power for those little smaller tiers and those little meat shields. But work on your tier 1 and your tier 2. That's just going to be most of what you need to do. Refining, fixing the refines on some of your others will help as well. But I mean, you can only do that on your main general. Your main general is pretty much fine. So offensively, the refining will help. Defensively, it's really troop count. That's really what you need. And increasing those layers as well. What else? Research. I wasn't able to take a look at your defense tree, but obviously, I mean, defense, you know that working on that is going to help. And for the lower tiers, I was saying before that just focusing on one tier is good as a primary, but you do want to have some of the others as well. Because people are going to hit you with different troop types, right? So the tier 1 cavalry is good in very specific circumstances, but not in all. So maybe working on increasing your ground a little bit and a little bit of the catapults, maybe getting like 100 million of each, 200 million of each, and increasing this one up to like 1 billion. Yeah, those are big numbers and it takes a long time. It's not an overnight thing, but working your way there will be very helpful, and increasing all the layers, right? 13,000 is really low. 100,000 is really low. Like those should be 1 million minimum. Especially the cavalry layers. If you're focusing on tier 1 cavalry, then your cavalry is getting all the flat refines. So like your tier 2 cavalry should be pretty bulky because they're going to be nearly as effective as the tier 1 in terms of the cost to damage ratio. So you're going to want to increase that, and you're going to want to increase your tier 3 cavalry and your tier 4, like all the way up to tier 10. Really increase those layers for everything. Okay, I think that's about all I have to look at here. I looked at your blazons as well. They were fine. I think you have them set to offensive right now. But they were okay. What else could I look at? I think we're pretty much done here. Okay. All right. Thanks for watching, guys. I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching this video and supporting the channel. If you liked what you saw, please consider hitting the like button and checking out other videos on the Miser's Guide to Evony. I'll see you in the next video.